Okay, we're rolling.
All right, this is an interview at the Radisson Hotel, Rochester, New York, 23rd of August 2005, approximately 1:15 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Okay, Joseph, middle name is Samuel, last name is Ciufo. I was born in Rochester, New York, October 4th, 1926.
What was your schooling, your school background prior to service?
Well, I quit high school to join the Navy in my senior year. Yeah,
Okay.
and,
So you enlisted?
yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Do you recall where you were and how you learned and your feelings about Pearl Harbor, how you learned about it?
Oh, I remember exactly where I was. My dad had taken me fishing that day. It was a warm day, and he told me if I washed the car, why, he'd take me fishing that afternoon, and he did. And on the way back, we had the car radio on and found out that Pearl Harbor had been bombed by the Japanese.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your feelings about this at all? Or?
Well, I think I was, if I'm not mistaken, I was either about 15. I just turned 15 at the time, and no, I really didn't. Except I knew we would win. You know.
Okay. You said you enlisted. When did you enlist?
Well, let's see. I signed up in May of 1944. They called me to active duty. I think it was the 8th of September 1944. I went to boot camp at Sampson.
Okay. Why did you pick the Navy?
Well, you know, my father and uncles were World War I veterans, and after listening to some of the stories about combat in Europe and World War I, why, I figured if I was going to get shot up, I'd rather do it in the Navy at sea. At least I get a bunk every night, and you know, it's from what the way they talked about World War I, why, I think I prefer the Navy.
Okay. What was it like at Sampson? How long were you there?
Well, we were only there a short time. I think we were there 6 or 7 weeks, and we were trained for the Navy. I mean, we took aircraft identification courses, swimming. We had a 5-inch gun simulator that we fired, and that was it. Like I said, we were basically trained to join the fleet.
Have you ever gone back to Sampson?
Yeah, I've gone. They've got a museum there.
Yes, right.
And, yeah, in fact, I sent them my boot camp graduation pictures. So.
Okay. All right, after Sampson, where did you go?
Well, after Sampson, they didn't waste too much time. We had, I think, a 5-day recruit leave, boot camp leave, and we had a train waiting for us, and we shipped out. We wound up in California a week later, and at a amphibious training base. I don't remember the name of it. We were only there a couple of days, and they lined up a bunch of buses and put us on a bus and took us over to Livermore Camp Parks in California, near Livermore, California. It was a Seabees base. I knew nothing about construction. I don't think any of the other fellows would, because we were all basically about the same age. And we weren't, very few of us, in boot camp, Navy boot camp, we were only on a rifle range for a couple of days. Well, the first thing they did, they gave us fatigues and packs, rifles, combat boots, helmets, gas masks, machetes, knives, and the next morning we were off on a rifle range. And we spent about, I'd say, good 2 or 3 weeks. Meantime, they canceled everybody's leave, and we were in Hawaii before Christmas that we shipped out. And
Did you go by convoy?
oh yeah, they had a convoy. In fact, we were on a ship called the Sea Flyer. It was a converted peacetime merchant ship, an old one, because it was built, I think, about in the early 1920s. When they fired the guns, you could see the rust fly off the sides of the ship. And when we got to Hawaii, we started. We had Marines from the 1st Marine Division, these fellows that were on at the Solomons, Guadalcanal, were our instructors. And we threw hand grenades, and then they set up this village where they fired machine guns over us. Now, mind you, I joined the Navy. I mean, I never expected this. But anyhow, you do the best you can, you know. And wasn't long. They put us on another ship, and another convoy, and we wound up in the Marshall Islands, and in Wetuck. We didn't stay there long. Probably about a week. In fact, I never went ashore. I stayed aboard ship. and ship pulled out again. And a short time after that, we wound up at Saipan. Now, Saipan had been secured, I think, probably 5 or 6 months before we got there. And a couple days after we landed, when I saw my first live Jap, and there were, I think, more of those little buggers running around. after the island was secured, then. But anyhow, full guard duty every night, and a lot of shooting going on. I don't know if I killed a goat one night, but there was scuttlebutt. The Japs were getting in our chow line, and I know when I was pulling guard duty at the main gate there, they had us check under the trucks and back of the truck, so they said a lot of them were slipping in to try to get food. And as far as training, when I was on Saipan, I signed up for small boat training, and which only consisted of putting you on a boat and having you run the boat, and how to start it, how to shut it off, where to check the oil, and where to fuel it, and the rest of the day we spent just running around with the boats. I was on an LCVP, landing craft, about 35, 36 feet long. We held about 30 men, and we didn't stay on Saipan too long. The next thing you know, we got aboard transports, and the thing I remember about that, on the dock opposite me, opposite our ship, was a hospital ship that was bringing the wounded back in from Iwo Jima, and they unloaded that ship. It took them about a day and a half to get all the wounded off from Iwo. We didn't know where we were going now at this point when we were boarding the transports, but like I say, it's at 17 or 18, I don't really think you're worried. I know I wasn't that worried about it. And we get out to sea, and just before we got to Okinawa, which was the first week in April, we didn't land on L Day or D Day, which was April 1st of 1945. We landed a couple days later at White Beach on the Buckner Bay side of the island, just north of the little the anchor line, what they call the Shuri line, ran from Yanaburu on the island, be on the south east coast, up through a place called Shuri Castle on the Naha, which was the capital. That's where the Japs were dug in. Because the first week from the guys that were there was very little activity as far as land combat, and it really didn't start till about a week later when they ran into the Japs at the Shuri line. And my biggest problem was the Kamikaze. I mean, we get on a boat, and every day those little buggers would show up daylight, and they'd be there, and they hit a lot of ships, quite a few of them. In fact, one of the fellows that I was going to bring with me that I asked Wayne about, Gene Ross, was on a ship called the Snelling, which was hit by a Kamikaze. And I see him plow into the bow doors of an LST that was up at the beach with the bow doors open. And they did. They got their share. You could, when you get aboard ship and you're standing in a gun tub and looking behind the gunner,
back on again.
Yeah, well, you could see those bullets go right through the airplane, and the guys, pilots would be so close you could see them. I've heard guys say that, boy, I could count their teeth, and you wonder how the hell they did it. But and then there were days when it was kind of overcast, low-hanging clouds. You could hear them flying around. Those, it isn't like today where you lock them in on radar and knock them down. We had to see them to shoot them. And they come out of the clouds real quick, and you could hear them flying around. The next time they come out, wide open, and they'd hit us. You didn't have much time to do anything, and they'd hit a ship. But anyhow, and Okinawa lasted. The land operation lasted about 3 months. During the day, like I said, we were out on the boat, and at night, our platoon leader would get us together, and we'd eat our K rations, and we'd go out on patrols. We'd either patrol the beach or set up an ambush to some of the work parties would have equipment or food or water stolen, so they'd tell us to go over. And that didn't bother me. The only thing that really scared the daylights out of me was turn around and have some kamikazes headed right for you. If they had machine guns, they could have killed us many, many times. But I guess they just didn't want the weight or whatever. And fortunately, you know.
So you were on the beach most of the time then?
Well, during the day where I was on the water with the boat.
Oh, okay.
And that night, like I say, we reported to our platoon leader, and they set up patrols for us, usually along the beach, to make sure that they weren't getting any Japs weren't getting in behind the Marines.
So basically, you were acting as an infantryman too, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I know I used to kid the GIs, call them ground pounders, and you know. But
Now, what kind of weapons did you?
I had an M1 carbine, 30 caliber. 10
You wear a
rounds.
helmet and so on?
Oh yeah. We had all the equipment, and
Well, what did you wear as a uniform?
we had the Marine Corps fatigues.
Okay.
The same fatigues that the Marine Corps wore. Yeah.
Did you patrol with Marines also?
We did go out to Marines a few times, and in fact, quite often. We had one patrol where we were getting shot at from some village that was close by, and I was in B company, and they sent most of my company in there, and I heard they told us that we had to clean out anyone, take all the civilians out, and any male that looked like he could pull the trigger, we were supposed to separate him. And we had a man in our company, name was Wetzel, I forgot his first name. But anyhow, he rounded the corner, and there's some Jap there, pointed a rifle at him, and fortunately, Wetzel had the presence of mind to push the rifle aside, but it hit him in the side. And he did take the rifle away from the Jap and kill him. So, that's, usually they were pretty scarce. Like, we saw a few of them, and we shot a couple of them, but nothing like the infantry was, those fellows had their work cut out for them.
How did you get along with the Marines?
Oh, we got along better with the Marines than we did with the Navy. Well, most of our, like I say, our instructors were all Marine Corps. And since we have a lot of their equipment, we were issued a lot of their equipment, the parts of uniforms. When it got cold, we got those Marine Corps wool shirts, and we got their boots and their blankets and USMC on them, you know. So, in fact, I often wondered why they just didn't get rid of the Seabees and just call it, you know, or get rid of the Marines. But because they had Marine engineers, I had a good close friend of mine who was in the 5th Division Marine engineers. He was on Iwo Jima, well, anyhow, so after Okinawa was secured, it got kind of monotonous, very monotonous. A lot of trouble. There'd be a lot of fights and arguments, and guys just, you know. The Army came up with the University of Okinawa School of Study Center, and I went to my company commander, told him I'd like to go, and fortunately I was one of the four people that were picked from our battalion to go. And the school lasted, I'd say, about 2 or 3 months, and then the scuttlebutt was that.
What did you learn?
Well, I tell you what I took. I remember I took English, physics, history. I took a math course. I forgot which math course it was. And then I had an elective, and I took typing. And the best thing I ever did, especially with the computers. You know, now you can just type away and just like nothing happened. Yeah. Well, they closed the school. Anyhow, the scuttlebutt was that someone had written to a congressman and said, well, if we go to school in Okinawa, why can't we go to school in the States? And they closed the school. And I went back to the battalion and was made battalion master at arms for some reason, and we ran the mess hall. Me and a fellow, in fact, he lives, Dick Brake. He used to live in Florida. He just moved back up north here. And we ran the mess hall, well, until we got orders we thought we were going back to the States, and instead when we boarded the ship, we went to Japan and stayed in Japan for, well, a short time. We went to Tokyo Bay, Yokohama, And I don't think we stayed there more than a month. And in fact, I never left the dock area. Some of the fellows did go to Tokyo. And apparently the Japs there was nothing standing between Yokohama and Tokyo. The Air Force did a hell of a job. And the thing I remember about being on the dock is I stood watch one night, and we were at the dock when they shoved us up to the dock. There was a railroad track going alongside the dock. And one night, I went down the galley. Things were very informal at the time, and one of the cooks gave me a couple of sandwiches to take with me. So I went up on deck, was walking along the ship, and I heard a big commotion and looked down. They had searchlights, the spotlights on. One of the rail cars had gotten off the track, and this Japanese work crew, they were jabbering away. They were working like hell, trying to get that thing back on the track. Well, one of them saw me eating a sandwich, and he put his hands up, so I threw him one. Well, they went after that. They were starving. They went after that sandwich like a pack of hounds after a piece of meat. And I felt bad. In a way, I felt bad for him. But that didn't last long. I figured that we did what we had to do when they had it coming. And after that, one day we were transferred to another ship. I was put on an APA and found out we were going back to the States. And we went back, pulled into Seattle, went to Bremerton, I think the base was, receiving station. And at Bremerton, because I had lost all my clothes at one of the typhoons on Okinawa, we were given.
Oh yes, you were there during.
Yes, sir. We had I remember basically two of them, one in September, one in October, and they cleaned out everything.
At sea or on land?
Well, I was on a boat for one of them, I remember, and they sent a small boat. We were anchored to these big 8-foot anchor buoys, and I know the waves started breaking over the ship, and when we called in, they said, "Well, don't worry, I could see shore. We could see the beach." And they sent a whaleboat out to pick us up, and the whaleboat got swamped. But anyhow, we finally made it onto the whaleboat, and we finally got ashore and hid in a cave until it blew over. And it was kind of comical because there was a seaplane base there, and they used to tie the planes down by the wings to blocks embedded in the concrete. And the only thing that was left was a piece of metal on the end of these cables. There were no airplanes. I was watching our mess hall. It looked like somebody threw a deck of cards up in the air when that went. And I've got some pictures home of White Beach where some ships are on their side up on the beach, and there isn't water in sight. I mean, that wind was pretty windy. Yeah. And I don't think it's as bad though as from what I hear some of these what Category 5 hurricanes they have in Florida. With winds up to 140, 150 miles an hour. But these were pretty good, but the strongest winds I've ever seen. And they did a lot of damage. Yeah. But at Seattle, like I say, we got new equipment, and we're given 45 days to get to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And so we went down to the railroad station and bought train tickets. The next day, the railroads went on strike. So we went to a bus station and wound up taking a Greyhound bus back. I went back to Rochester. Went home. When we got through. Well, we stopped in every town and wound up having a few beers and missing most of the buses. And I think I had about a week left at home to get back to the base, get back to Brooklyn. And then I stayed in Brooklyn probably about a month. I was transferred to Lido Beach, Long Island, where I was discharged. I think it was either July or August of '46.
Whereabouts were you when they dropped the atomic bombs?
I was on Okinawa. Yeah, that would have been August of '45. Now they claim, you can probably verify this. They claim that the Japs surrendered the middle of August, but I can distinctly remember that the battleship Pennsylvania, and this has got to be the middle of August, the 14th or 15th, took about 3 or 4 torpedoes one night, because I used to listen to the radio traffic, and in either the following night or next night, a transport was hit. Now I forgot if that was with a bomb or with torpedoes. So, you know, you'd be aboard ship and listen to the radio and then go ashore and the guy said, geez, the war's over. And you get aboard ship and you figure, you know, you'd wonder what the heck was going on. Well, then I guess September, when it was official, September, what, early September?
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you, I never saw even during the war, I never saw that much shooting going on. Everybody fired everything they had. Yeah, it was quite a day.
Okay, after you were discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
Yeah, yes, sir. I went to University of Rochester.
How about I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What? Oh, the 5220 Club?
No, I never. You know, funny thing about that. I was single at the time, living at home. I just got out of the Navy, and I was getting ready to go to school. I was going to go to Bowling Green out in Ohio, because I had relatives out there. And I wanted to sign for that 5220. And I left the paperwork on the counter at wherever, I forgot now where you signed up for it. And they had a police officer deliver it. My mother was home at the time. And when she found out, when I got home, boy, she said, don't you ever take any money from the government that you haven't earned. So that was.
I think you earned it.
That was it. She said, you don't take any money from. She said, you go out and you know. I said, but I'm waiting to go to school. And she said, I don't care. She said, then you get some money that you saved, you know, while you were in the service. Right.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I was in the American Legion for a while, and then I dropped out there and joined the VFW, and I became a life member of the VFW. I still belong to the Legion, but I renew it every year. Most years, not every year. Yeah.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
Oh yeah, we had reunions from battalion reunions from 1948, and I went to probably about 5 or 6 of them because, you know, in the years when you get married and have kids, you got kids and whatever, so I missed quite a few of them. But I did manage to make about 5 or 6 of them. And the last one we had in '02, I think it was, in Colorado Springs. We had 27 men show up, and there were 2 on oxygen and 2 in wheelchairs. So we figured that would be the last. We haven't had reunion since, but I still talk to probably about 5 or 6, including that Gene Ross I was telling you about, and Dick Brake. And there's a fellow in Connecticut, Joe Catala, and there's a man in Maine, Francis Carter, still talk to him. And that's about all that's left, really. There aren't many of us left. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think your time in the service changed or had an effect on your life?
Well, I don't think there's a day goes by that really you don't think about it. You know, something. It's something you might see something or hear something, a sound, a smell, or something, and yeah, I guess you call it what, a flashback. And yeah, I think anybody that that was there, had that experience, would be the same. More so, some guys more so than others.
Okay. If you could hold this crease there, like this, Wayne can focus on it, and if you could tell us when and where that was taken.
Well, that had to be taken right after I got out of boot camp in probably October of 1944 in Rochester. And if it wasn't for my mother, I don't think I'd ever had one taken, because I really didn't want to take it, and she insisted, and that's why I had it taken.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.